Hi, everybody. I'm Stacia.
Hey, it's Jordan.
Let's get completely checked out. So, it has been about a week or so since we released our first episode, and I just want to personally say thank you to everybody who has listened so far. We have
Yeah.
gotten just the sweetest comments. We just thank you, everybody who has been there for us so far, and as we continue
hmm
to grow and everything.
Yeah. And I've received a couple book recs, so I'll be adding those to my arsenal of episodes. So super happy about
Yay!
that.
Yes, I eventually want to start doing requests as well. I'm gonna wait just because I haven't been in the reading mood recently. I read 4 books last month. It was really crazy.
Yeah.
That is not like me. And to address that, I had a couple people who were like, Stasha, what the heck are you doing while Jordan is talking? Do you ever see me while Jordan is talking? I have the worst ADHD known to man. And while I'm medicated, it is so hard for me to focus on anything
hmm
if I'm not doing something with my hands. That goes for if I'm in a class, if I'm like professional development training, literally anything. What I'm doing is I'm crocheting the whole time. I'm currently crocheting a cardigan. This is what's going on if you do see my face and you're like, what is Stasha doing over there? That's what Stasha's doing over there. Because I did have one or two people ask, and I was like, I should probably explain that one. Uh,
Just
but
keeping your hands busy so your mind can listen.
it's so bad. I can't even watch TV without doing something with my hands. Crocheting
Right.
has been great because
Yeah.
I've actually caught up on shows, which is
Mm.
bonkers because usually I
Yeah.
don't watch TV at all. However, we are going to start with my story today. I am
Yay.
doing one that I read, I think, last month, and it easily became one of my favorite books. It's called Strange Sally Diamond. It is by Liz Nugent, I think is how you pronounce that last name. Nugent. It looks like Nugget. It's not. So this is going to be a thriller technically, but to me it read more like a general fiction, which is it's different, but I actually really liked it. It wasn't as intense as most thrillers are. It like read more like a story, which was interesting. It's about 384 pages. Goodreads gave it a 4.18, which is really high for a book on Goodreads, especially a thriller. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I loved this book so much. For those who do like your trigger warnings, this is going to involve rape, racism, pedophilia, kidnapping, and child abuse. So just all the bad ones. I had my sister on the first episode call me and she's like, so your trigger warnings are just all the trigger warnings. And I was like, yeah, you should probably just assume that it's always all the trigger warnings. I had Jordan brought up a book that she's like, oh, why don't you do this one? You've talked about it before. It's called What Lies Between Us. And I was like, I think that would have the most trigger warnings. That book is the most messed up book I've ever read. So we'll see if I do that, but it's messed up.
Currently in book club, we're reading Butcher and Blackbird. So I will be doing that for an
Mm.
episode, but I heard that those trigger warnings are also pretty crazy.
I've heard such mixed reviews about that one, so I'd be interested. I know the girl who leads that book club has had that on her radar for a long time.
I've had
So
it on
I'd
my
be
TBR for a while too.
You have everything on your TBR for a while though. Your TBR is like over 500 books, so I don't want to hear
Over
it.
650 now.
That stressed me out so. My TBR is like 40
Yeah.
books.
Oh no.
I'm not good at
I
TBRs.
see a book, I read the summary, and I go, oh, that's pretty good. And I'll add it.
Yeah, that's a
I'll
no for
get
me,
to
dog.
them.
But let me know how it is, just because I've heard such different things about it.
Yeah.
I don't
So
usually like
far,
romance in my thriller.
I do. So far, from a couple of the girls that have started reading it, they had said that the banter is really good. And I love banter.
I know you
So
do. It reads more like a
excited.
romance, I think, and it reminds me of Verity by Colleen Hoover. Everyone and their mothers told me to read
Mm,
that book, and I did, and I was not impressed. I was like,
I have not read that one, and I
don't read
probably
anything by
won't.
Colleen Hoover. I'm
I
sorry if
mean,
you're a
not
Colleen Hoover fan.
now. I'm not going
She's
to bring up the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively shit, but
oh my god.
I'm pissed at Colleen Hoover for taking Blake's side. I'm going to say
I
it.
Colleen Hoover is problematic, period. All her plots are just like
Fucking weird.
solved by therapy. Like the whole plot would be fine if they just went to therapy. But of course, no one goes to therapy in a Colleen Hoover book. I'm sorry if you
Yeah.
love Colleen Hoover, but read other authors, please. Anyway, now to this author who did a great job and didn't take the side of someone who you shouldn't have taken of. That's my only thing. Okay, so we're going to open up with Sally. Sally is 43 years old. The year is 2018. We are in England, and she is currently living in the home with her elderly father, who is dying of cancer. Something about Sally is she's like Amelia Bedelia. And I don't know if you read Amelia Bedelia books as a kid, Jordan. Just to give you examples for those who didn't read those books in elementary school. It's about a woman who's a maid, and she takes everything too literally. So if they say, Amelia, go draw the drapes, instead of closing the curtains, she'll literally take a piece of paper and draw the drapes. They'll be like, Amelia, you're on a roll. And she'll roll a roll on the ground. She just takes everything way too literally. So that's how this girl is. She just takes everything super literally. They never label her in this book, but personally, as someone who has no medical or mental health experience, I would say she's on the spectrum for autism somewhere, and I think she has an emotional disorder just by how she operates and acts. We know that she does have some form of disorder. They just never name it. So take that with a grain of salt, but she's different. She's great. She's different. So Sally knows that she was adopted by her dad, who was a former psychiatrist, and her mom, who was a doctor who had passed a couple years back. And she was adopted when she was 7, but she doesn't remember anything before the age of 7. She just remembers being adopted by these two. So now through her life, her dad would always jokingly say things like, when I die, just put me out with the trash. And of course, she took that literally, which what happens next is not her fault, in my opinion. I believe it's her dad's fault because eventually her dad does die of cancer, just in his bed, natural causes, nothing crazy. And due to Sally taking everything literally and her disorder, she doesn't really grieve. She's just, he's dead. Okay. And she just throws him into the incinerator where they throw all their trash. And I don't think that's her fault because this man's a psychiatrist and he has been with her for, I can't math right now, but over 30 years. And you can't tell her that jokingly and think that she's not going to take it seriously. He should have known better, not to victim blame. One day she's at the bank collecting her father's pension. About a week later, and the teller's, hey, Sally, how's your dad? And Sally's, oh, he's dead. I put him in the incinerator. And the teller at the bank is literally, I'm sorry, what? Heavy blinking. I'm sorry, what did you say? So now somebody eventually gets in contact with a woman named Angela. She's a doctor, she's a close family friend, and she comes over to assist Sally in what is now a criminal investigation. Because when you tell someone that you have thrown a dead body into an incinerator, you don't just get to go home, unfortunately. That is not how that works. Thankfully, Angela's there to help her in the investigation and tells the cops, like, hey, she has a disorder. I know that she didn't think this was wrong, yada. But Angela finds a thick envelope at home that says, read after I die. But because it was not marked when to read it after he died, Sally didn't open it. She was waiting for her birthday to open it because in her mind, she was like, I only open packages on my birthday, so I'll just wait. And that's technically after he died. So she just didn't open it. So in the envelope, there was a letter that had information about what her father wanted for funeral arrangements. There was lawyers, contact information. There was reassurance that there was money for Sally to live her life. And finally, there was a letter explaining what happened to Sally before they adopted her at the age of 7. The first letter, Angela allows her to read, and it just explains how her father regrets not socializing her more or having more in-depth therapy for her. And the second letter contains all the funeral arrangements and so forth. Angela, being a great family friend, handles the funeral, and while Sally doesn't want to go, she eventually does. She doesn't want to go for any negative reason. She's just different, guys. She just doesn't understand the point of a funeral if someone's dead. She's a sociopath in a sense where she just doesn't really feel emotions or have empathy in any way. And I don't think in any form or fashion through this book it's malicious. She's never malicious in her intent. She just lacks that emotion. Sally is living alone in the house, and while she's living alone in this house, a couple of things happen. So the first thing is tons of reporters are trying to get her to tell her story, and she doesn't even know her story because she doesn't remember anything before 7. There are charges for mishandling a corpse, but they are dropped due to her quote-unquote medical condition. There are two kids who like bully her and break her window with a stone, call her names. She does eventually get an apology and kind of becomes friends with that family in a very odd twist. But most importantly, she receives a teddy bear in the mail. It is so old and it's so gross. But Sally somehow recognizes it and she just immediately calls it Toby. And she becomes attached to this teddy bear to the point where Angela tried to take it away to give to the police because she thinks it's involved in something. And Sally, very uncharacteristically, attacks her. Sally has never been violent in her life, but for some reason, because of trying to take away this teddy bear, it's almost like a natural instinct. The bear did come with a note, and it said, I thought you might want this back from S. So after attacking, I know, we love a creepy note that explains nothing. So after attacking Angela, both Angela and her Aunt Christine is her adoptive mom's sister. So the adoptive mom who passed away a while ago due to sickness, her aunt comes into the picture as well. So Angela and Aunt Christine sit down with her and read the final letter to her to try to get her to understand why they need to bring this teddy bear to the police station. So in this letter, it says that Sally's real name is actually Mary, and her birth mother was a woman named Denise. Denise was kidnapped at the age of 11 by a man named Connor, who was 40-something years old. And for 14 years, Denise was kept in a shed where she was abused in multiple ways until a tip led to their rescue. While Denise and Mary were saved, they never caught Connor, and he drained the bank accounts and he left. So it's very much giving J.C. Lee Dugard. I know we've talked about this and you don't know the case of J.C. Lee Dugard, but there are cases like hers out there where she was kidnapped at a very young age and kept for a multitude of years. It does sicken me that this is something that does actually happen.
Yeah.
It's crazy that anybody can get away with that for a prolonged period of time. If anyone knows the J.C. Lee Dugard case, it's similar to that. So Sally, who is formerly known as Mary, is finding out her father is obviously Connor. Connor, who kidnapped Denise, sexually abused Denise, and as a result, Sally was born from that. She also learns that once they were saved, they went to a mental care facility where their care was overseen by Sally's adoptive parents. So remember, her adoptive parents were a doctor and a psychiatrist, and they were actually the people who oversaw their care when they went in, which is such a tug at your heart story. So Denise did not do well when she was rescued. She was very violent. She would not talk about Connor, and she would not let Mary out of her sight. Obviously, these are very normal reactions for somebody who has been abused for a multitude of years. And they're there for a really long time, basically. Denise and Mary are there for about a year after being rescued. So a team of specialists decide that it's time to start putting some space between Denise and Mary after a year. They never leave each other's side for anything. One night, once they're both heavily sedated and asleep, Sally, was taken to another room, and they had multiple people watching them overnight. However, Denise woke up before they anticipated around 5 a.m., and she noticed Mary was not there. In a very desperate attempt to, I don't even know, but in this kind of breakdown she's having, she ends up bashing her head repeatedly against a wall, which is so hard to even think about. When you're that messed up mentally, I'm sure it made sense in her head. So despite attempts to save her, Denise does pass away due to this. Obviously, the psychiatrist and doctor adopted Mary, renamed her Sally Diamond, and after learning all this, Sally is very quick to hand the bear back over and have the police track down Connor. Her kind of primal instincts kicked in and was like, don't take this bear away. But then when she logically knew why they would want to take the bear to the police, she's like, yeah, please take this away. I'm so sorry. Please take this. So now we're going to go back in time. We're going to leave Sally for a bit. And we're going to go back in time to 1974. This portion is told from the perspective of a boy named Peter, who is 6 years old. And we are also in Dublin, Ireland. I want to go to Dublin, Ireland. So we learned Peter is Connor's son. Connor obviously had Sally, but he also had a son named Peter. Peter knows that his mother is the quote-unquote ghost who lives in the shed, and Connor loves Peter. Okay, so while Peter is technically locked away while Connor's at work, he's locked in a really cushy bedroom with all his favorite foods and toys and books. And just because this kid doesn't know any better, obviously, he loves his dad. He doesn't see anything wrong with what his dad, he's 6, okay? He's treated relatively well, and his father very much loves him. Peter obviously loves his dad. We feel bad for the child, not the adult. Let's just say that. So one day, Connor has to go out of town for 2 days for this dentist conference. I don't know. He's a dentist. So he leaves Peter in the shed with the ghost for that period of time. Connor tells Peter that he can hurt the ghost if he wants, but never to answer any questions that this ghost asks. So obviously, the quote unquote ghost is Denise, and Peter discovers that it's really his mom. And I guess he learns in this process that he did live with her when he was breastfeeding, but was taken away at the age of 2 to live with Connor. Something we also have to notice is Denise is very pregnant once Peter is with her in this shed. Peter, not knowing any better, treats Denise absolutely terribly and actually kicks her in the stomach, which, again, I'm not going to blame this child. He was 6. He was following his father's instructions. He did not know better. But he does kick her in the stomach hard enough to send her into early labor. So we should note that, I just said that Peter doesn't know any better. I can read. I'm not illiterate. Yeah, someone the other day jokingly said I was illiterate, and I was like, I'm not illiterate. And then I read something else completely wrong, and I was like, maybe I am illiterate. Who knows? But basically, due to how Peter was brought up, Connor would always tell him that women were the worst thing ever and should never be respected, which we love a misogynist. Why not? Abuser, misogynist, why not? So Connor comes home in time for Denise to have the baby, and the baby is obviously Mary, aka Sally. Peter asks if Mary will come to live with them, and Connor says, quote unquote, no, we do not need another bitch. That's fun. We love that. We're going to fast forward 6 years. Peter is 12. So over the years, he has asked Connor why he can't go to school or have any friends, because obviously he's very isolated. And Connor tells him it's because he has a disease where if someone touches him, he dies. But parents can touch him, like people who are blood related to him. He says it's really rare. He hopes they find a cure soon. And obviously, Peter doesn't know any better. Literally, his dad has been his whole life, and he doesn't have access to any form of media. So I'm going to believe him. He doesn't know any better. So this is around the time where Connor is at work, and a burglar actually breaks into their home. Denise hears this, and in a very smart attempt to save her life, starts shouting her name and that she needs to be saved multiple times. And this burglar ends up being the hero and going to the police. And that is the tip that the police get to save them. So when Connor gets home, Peter tells him everything. Peter's, oh my gosh, there was this person, and she started screaming. Immediately, Connor starts to panic, and he's packed everything. We're going to drain the bank accounts. We're going to head for somewhere else. We're going to head for London, where he plans on getting them new passports with fake names. After Peter and Connor get these passports, the two flee to New Zealand. I'm going to take a pause real quick because the lady who, I'm not ready to come your way with a lamp. Yes, it does. Sorry, I'm just texting her my address.
No worries.
Yes, it comes with light bulbs. I'm not a monster. Okay. All right, we're back in. So now back to present day with Sally. During this time we were gone, it's been about a year since Sally's adoptive father passed away, and she has started to make friends and has gone through very intense psychotherapy to deal with the PTSD that she is now experiencing and help her get back into society. She ends up meeting more friends in town, and people know her situation and are able to call her out when she says things inappropriately or they need to redirect her. Someone will come up to her and say, Sally, how was your day? And she's like, oh, it was good. And then they have to say, it's polite to ask how my day was. And Sally will say, honestly, I don't really care how your day was. And they're like, that's okay, but it is polite to ask. And she goes, okay, thank you for telling me, and then asks. So she doesn't pick up on normal social cues, but her friends are really sweet and gentle in helping her mesh in with the mainstream of neurotypical people.
Yeah.
And I do love Sally. Sally is different. Sally is quirky, and she is just a good person. She is not malicious. She may seem rude to the naked eye or crazy to the naked eye, but she's had a hard life, and she's trying her best in this whole book, which is so harrowing to read. So this is where we are going to meet Mark. He works with one of Sally's new friends, and he seems to be very smitten with Sally, very interested, but he denies it because men can't admit their feelings. Sally, though, due to all of her stuff, is asexual. And for those who don't know what asexual is, it means that they are not a person who has sexual urges really at all. They don't have any interest in sex, whether it be with men, women, anything like that. Not even personally have sexual interests. While she likes Mark as a friend, she doesn't want anything more, and he seems to be fine with that. Mark, though, is getting very interested in Sally's story. Very oddly interested. He's wanting to read through transcripts from when they were rescued, showing up at events and talking to her aunt and asking these deep questions. And mind you, I love true crime. If I knew someone went through something, I'd be like, I want to research that. However, comma, it needs to be noted that I would never go to a victim and be like, can I read all the evidence you have on your personal story? That's weird. I'm sorry. So she ends up moving out of her house and moving to a bigger one, which is a super big deal because Sally is not a person who can take change extremely well. And then in this new house, she decides to throw a party for her friends and family, which is an even bigger deal because through this past year, she's going through all of this therapy to try to socialize her better. And it's going really well. Sally hires a security guard because deep down, she is nervous that her father might show up. It seems a little illogical because we know nothing about Connor. However, it's her money. She can do what she wants, whatever. So the security guard during this party gives the signal that someone is trespassing, and Sally freaks out. Again, primal instinct, because she is not a violent human. However, she immediately grabs a fire poker and runs out front. Thankfully, Angela and another friend see this is happening and are in tow with her. And of course, thankfully, it is not her father. It is just this local woman who is racist, and Mark and her ended up getting her fired because of these like racist comments she was making on the job. And this woman just shows up to yell at her basically. But the important thing is it's not her father. However, they keep her from hurting her just because, like I said, she's in this primal instincts, and they get her to calm down. But Mark very abruptly leaves this party after that and skips town. We just don't hear from Mark again, which is so weird. Long story short, Angela and her aunt figure out that Mark is actually Sally's biological uncle. So that would mean he is Denise's brother. And he's obsessed because obviously he wants to avenge his sister. So
is Mark older or younger?
He's older, but it wasn't by that much because you have to remember how young Denise was when she had Mary and everything. So yeah, but he is older. And of course, this whole time I thought it was Peter who was actually Mark. But
yeah,
no, Mark was just Denise's brother. And now I get it because I'm like, if that happened to my sister, I would also be there. Right. So he and Sally end up meeting again. He says he ran away because I saw more of your father in you than your sister. And like that violent outburst just freaked him out, even though it was very uncharacteristic for Sally. But they do reconcile and they decide to have a friendship and work together to find as much about Denise as they can and try to find the man who took her. Because Sally is also very much wanting to avenge her own biological mother, despite not having any form of loving feelings towards her. So they're going to work together. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. So obviously he had taken Denise. Does the book ever tell how or like when he took Denise? Because obviously,
yeah,
the brother was old enough to know, okay, someone kidnapped my sister. Obviously, they had to have had people looking for her, maybe. But yeah, does it ever?
They never tell us how Denise was particularly kidnapped. Okay. They do go into a way where it shows his pattern, I would say. So we do find out some more information about that.
Yeah.
You have to remember, too, that this was the 70s. And unfortunately, when people got kidnapped, it was not easy to find them.
Yeah.
Especially when they were so young. There wasn't cell phones. There wasn't like DNA tracing. There wasn't really anything. I hate to say it like this, but back in the 70s, it was really easy to kidnap and keep someone if you were smart enough.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's not because we have really cool technology. Right. #forensics files. But back then, it was unfortunately extremely easy. There's actually a really interesting, I laugh because it's so stupid. There's a really interesting documentary that I think you should watch. I have to find it. But it's basically about this guy who like kidnapped this girl from like her front porch and they like couldn't find him. But what's funny about it is the parents were like really stupid during the whole thing. And we know who kidnapped her. We just don't feel like it. And then I guess they got their daughter back and then the daughter got kidnapped by the same guy again. It was just really weird. It's not funny. It's not funny. But when you watch it, you're like, how stupid are you? But this was the 70s. It was insanely easy to kidnap children in the 70s. It's just true. That's why they put them on milk cartons. So anyway, we're going to go back to Peter now. The year is 1984. They are still in New Zealand. Connor, who is the kidnapper and father, ends up changing his name to James. I'm still going to refer to him as Connor. Peter, who is now 14 years old, changes his name to Stephen. Important to note that it starts with an S. However, I'm still going to refer to him as Peter because that's just easier to follow. So Connor is able to forge documents to start a new dentist business. While he's at work, Peter makes friends with the boy next door who is a person of color. He is from India, and his father does not approve this because if we didn't like that he was a misogynist, he's also a racist. Yay! His dad doesn't like him being friends with this boy purely because he is Indian. So one day, while Connor is at work, Peter and his new friend go for a swim to celebrate it being summer. Now remember, Peter does believe that he can't be touched by anyone or he will die. He still believes that with his whole heart because he doesn't know better. So his friend is starting to drink and he's like, I can't swim, so I'm just going to sit up here and drink my beers. But after a couple beers, the friend decides to try to swim and then starts to drown. Unfortunately, Peter is in this him or me mentality because, like I said, he believes that if he gets touched by anyone, he's going to die. So he's having this moral dilemma of, do I go in and save my friend and I die, or do I let my friend die? So in this dilemma, his friend does drown and Peter runs home in a panic. His dad is there and he's like crying, and his dad says, stop crying like a girl. Fun. And then helps him cover up the death of his friend. So about a year later, Peter is still complaining. He's 15 years old and he's, I need a friend. I don't have any friends, Dad. You keep me in this house all day, which is fine, and I love you, but I need someone my age. So one day, he and Connor go for a drive, and they run into this 14-year-old girl named Lindy at a lake. Connor ends up kidnapping Lindy. Basically, the way they do it is with Peter there, they start a conversation with her, and they're like, oh, we can drive you over to where your parents are at. She gets in the car, and obviously when she gets in the car, she's not getting out until they get to their house. Connor keeps her in this barn they have in the back. He soundproofs it and everything and keeps her there. While Peter doesn't like this at all, he thinks his dad did this so he can have a friend. He has no idea about anything. He's just like, oh, my dad just gave me a friend. Cool. Again, I don't really blame Peter for anything at this point because it's almost like Stockholm Syndrome at this point because he doesn't know any better. But long story short, Peter does find out that his dad is sexually assaulting Lindy, and in turn had kidnapped her and sexually assaulted Denise as well. So he's starting to finally put the pieces together that his dad is a shitty ass human and the spawn of Satan himself. This is around the time when Peter is 17. And as Peter is learning this, him and his dad are in the car, Peter's driving and confronting his dad about all this information. And finally, his dad, Connor, says his disease was also made up. So Peter's just getting like bombshell after the other. His whole life is just up in ruins at 17 years old. So in this fun dilemma, he actually turns the car off the road and runs it into a tree, killing Connor. So he kills his dad. He said, so Dad, you're a horrible person. I'll just take matters into my own hands and kill you.
Oh my
Which
God.
I get.
Right.
Sorry, I shouldn't say it like that. I don't think anyone should die, even if fictional. However, I do think that in this really fun breakdown that Peter is having, that was just the logical move for him.
Yeah.
He's like, my dad's a horrible person. Let me just get rid of him. Vigilante. So now you're okay. Peter can release Lindy. He can go to the cops. But you have to remember, Peter is really fucked up. His dad really messed him up. And if I release Lindy, I'm going to go to jail for something I didn't even do. Because they're not going to believe me when I say I had no idea. They're going to see a 17-year-old kid who's known this girl has been in the barn the whole time and nothing else. So he freaks out and he decides to keep Lindy. But he decides to keep her in a quote unquote loving way. So he knows it'll take years, but he wants Lindy to eventually love him for him, which is so messed up. In a 6-year span, he never touches Lindy, not once. He spends time with her, like watching TV. He brings her favorite foods, and he's trying to make her comfortable and care for her. It's like he thinks he has a cat and not a human against her will. And the thing that he repeats all the time is, I am not my father. I am not my father. I am not my father. And he refers to that in a sense where I'm not going to sexually abuse anyone, despite not seeing how fucked up the rest of the situation is. So after this 6 years, Lindy kind of develops Stockholm Syndrome and starts to quote unquote fall for Peter. They do have sex, which while in the moment seems very consensual, because she does give him permission and everything. I'd like to point out that this is still technically sexual assault because she is still against her will. She definitely has Stockholm syndrome. In the book, obviously, it looks more consensual than it actually is in real life. And because of this, she does end up falling pregnant, which Lindy is so excited about. She is so excited to have a baby and be a mom. But Peter is not. A baby means more money, which he does not have. And he's also really nervous that Lindy will love the baby more than him. We love toxic traits like that. Mm-hmm. So when the baby is born, Peter takes the baby to a chapel and leaves it on their doorstep, which is nice of him that he just took the baby somewhere.
He could have killed it.
He could have.
He could have killed it.
A win's a win. Just kidding. Please don't do that, guys. Please don't cancel me. So when Lindy wakes up and realizes what's happened, she is furious, obviously. She wanted her baby. Peter took it away. And so she ends up hating him again for another 5 years, okay? This man is so patient. I could never wait for someone for 5 years. But he does. He continues to take care of her. He doesn't touch her for 5 more years. So eventually they do, quote unquote, make up, and they live this very fucked up loving life. And it's to the point where he doesn't even lock her in the barn anymore. She sleeps there because that's where she wants to be. He tries to get her to sleep inside and stuff in his house with him, and she just doesn't want to. It doesn't feel like home. She wants to go to the barn. But he doesn't lock it, and she never leaves because she's that fucked up. When you keep someone for, what is it now, almost 13 years, it alters their brain. So eventually Lindy does die of appendicitis. She has all the pains and stuff, and of course Peter can't bring her to a hospital because there's no record of her and he would go to jail. So she just dies of appendicitis in this barn. Peter ends up cleaning her up a bit and then puts her into the lake where she was kidnapped at. So that's Peter. We're going to go back to Sally now, present day. Sally gets another package in the mail from the same person who sent the teddy bear, who we now know is Peter. Mm-hmm. She calls Mark over and they open it together. And inside is a letter from Peter where he more or less explains everything since she had last seen him. He mentions just about everything except for Lindy. So that's nice of him. But inside of this package, he also includes a DNA kit with his DNA inside, so that Sally can confirm that they are indeed blood-related siblings, because you don't want... Ooh, that was fun. You don't want someone coming out of the woodwork claiming to be your brother and then not. So Sally does invite Peter to come stay with her, and they very quickly bond, because nothing bonds people together more than trauma, I'll tell you what. But over time, more started coming out about Peter. So the DNA test he took links him to a child named Amanda, who is now 23 years old. And he tells Sally, oh, it was the result of a one-night stand, and she dismisses it. However, as we know, this girl Amanda, who was linked in the DNA test, is actually the baby he had with Lindy and left at the chapel. So that comes up, and he just didn't think of that, which is fun. A podcaster also reaches out to Peter, and he's, hey, I know that you're the son of Connor. I would love to interview you. These are the theories I have and stuff. And in all these theories that are laid out and with the evidence, Peter notices that they are way too close to the real story. Starts mentioning about how Connor probably kidnapped Lindy and stuff like that. And it's just too close for comfort. So Peter starts to freak out. And my best plan of action would be to get a new identity and just to leave England. Leave Mary, leave England, leave everything behind. So Peter asks Sally for a loan. She tells him that she ended up inheriting Connor's house and just sold it, because why would you keep that?
Right.
So the money's technically yours because that was your home, and I just didn't know you existed. So Peter makes her transfer the money in cryptocurrency, red flag, and then he buys himself a fake passport and heads to Los Angeles in the dead of night. So basically he takes her money and runs without any explanation. So when Sally realizes Peter is gone, she loses her mind. In the same sense of Denise realizing Mary was gone in the middle of the night, Sally's freaking out. This was the first time she had ever felt a connection with another human being, like a genuine emotional connection. And now that he's gone so suddenly without any explanation, she is just spiraling. He does eventually text her, and he's basically, hey, I want to travel more, so that's why I left, but I don't want to keep in touch. So it would be the equivalent of being in a relationship with someone for 5 years and them just like leaving and ghosting you with no explanation. That would drive me insane. So Sally is spiraling, just backtracking all of her progress. She is drinking heavily. She is going back to original habits that she had. She is very angry. She pushes all of her friends and family away, and she is just traumatized all over again. So in the end of this book, Sally is at her like her worst. And the reason I love this book so much is it shows how a mental health journey is never linear. How you will have ups and you will have downs, and you might have consistent downs. It's just so different. So at the end of this book, Sally is literally at rock bottom. That's how we end. It ends with Sally's friends and family who are rallying around her. They do an intervention with her, and it looks like a promising start to help rebuild her and her progress. That was beautiful and hopeful that she had this community in the end that did want to help her. But for Peter, his story ends a little bit differently. He goes to Los Angeles to start a new life, and the police in England and Ireland are actually able to connect that he was Connor's son. They were able to connect the fact that he did keep Lindy and have her child, and that child was eventually Amanda, who they found the DNA testing.
Mm-hmm.
So he decides to change his whole identity and settles into a new property in Los Angeles that has a barn. And he soundproofs the barn, and he does it with the intention of having another quote unquote relationship. He does not mind waiting for them to love him like Lindy did, but he says, but not children. I am not my father. And that is how the story concludes. It explores a lot of themes that I found so interesting. Like I said, how mental health is not linear.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. It also shows generational trauma.
Yeah.
Especially through Peter, because I listen to a podcast, a true crime podcast I love, and they always say, feel bad for the child, not the adult. So for Peter, I'm speaking as if he's real, but people like this exist. As a child, I feel very bad for Peter. He doesn't know better. It's how he was raised. But as an adult, definitely should know a lot better, obviously.
Yeah.
So it really speaks to how generational trauma can happen.
Yeah. But he also just doesn't know any better. He doesn't know how to have a normal life or a normal relationship or interact normally with people.
Yeah.
The only person it sounded like he could only interact with normally was Mary, because they went through the same thing. So you get it. But anyone else, if he were to interact with them, he wouldn't really know.
Absolutely. It's still just absolutely crazy, especially with nowadays and age. He should have known better, and he just didn't. He freaked out. And I would love to know any cases where that generational trauma does. I know a lot of it turns to criminal history, but I've never really heard of something like this where the child ends up following in the same footsteps as their parents.
Right.
I'd be very interested to know more. But that is Strange Sally Diamond. It is a beautifully written book. It is such a great time. Such a devastating story and thriller concept, but also just some great themes. It was just all around, had everything I wanted. Yeah, I absolutely loved this book, and I couldn't get enough of it. So now that we're done traumatizing everybody, I think it is time for you to... Yeah, you can bring us into a fantasy world, which I am extremely excited about. I do love your fantasy stories because I'm not going to read them.
Right. This one is so good.
One of my coworkers the other day, she's reading Quicksilver and she hates it, but she was talking about, she was like comparing it to other fantasy books, and she knows I've read Agatar and Fourth Wing, but she doesn't know that's all I've read in that realm. I'm trying to compare it to other books, and I'm like, girl, I got no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I have Quicksilver on my list, but yeah, I started reading it and now I'm like, I don't know.
I read excerpts that she had given me, and it does not look good, but also I don't know anything about fantasy, so I don't think I'm a great judge. She hates it, but yeah, I just don't know. So I love getting to know more about the fantasy world because I'm not going to read it. All right, it's your turn.
Yeah, let's get into A Veil of Truth and Trickery by Analeigh Ford. So this is the first book of a series, and I sped through this book. It's also a shorty. It's like 260. It is so short. compared
That's so
to
unheard of.
compared to other books. And a lot of her books are around the same page. I don't think any of them go above 300 pages. I'm going to start recommending this book along with Beasts of the Briar because this is so short and such a good quick read. I demolished the first two books within a week, and I'm on the
We
third
love
book right
that.
now, but I have taken a break so I can read Fourth Wing. But yeah, it's such a unique story too. I gave it a rating of 4 because obviously it's the first book. The second book, I
Yes.
definitely gave a 4.5 because it just got so crazy in the second book. But everyone knows I'm a really easy rater. The other platforms like Storygraph, Goodreads, and Fable all gave it around a 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair.
yeah, totally fine. Yeah, let's just dive in. We got
Please.
our female main character from her POV. Her name is Delphine or Delph. And
Ooh.
this is in like the olden times of lords and kingdoms and back in the very, very early days.
Interesting.
It's not like a modern or anything. So she believes she's cursed. Okay. I'm going to read a little excerpt. I came out of the womb colored like starlight, skin blue and hair spun from bleached bones. I was fey-marked in that instant, damned forever to live beneath the sideways glances and whispered words that all said the same thing. I'm fey-marked. I'm cursed. Obviously, crazy for a baby to come out with blue skin. But her skin became more human colored as she got older, and she's 20 years old, and her birthday is a couple days away. Her birthday is midsummer. It's
Okay.
coming up. People always remember that she's got this affliction because of her gray white hair. That color has never changed, and she also has black eyes. Not her whole eye is black, but her irises are black. They're not brown, they are black. You can't see her pupils.
Thank you for clarifying. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
of course. Obviously, Fae back in these days were known for their trickery and their games. And back before, like hundreds of years before, Fae were very prevalent in the human realm. So much so that obviously stories have been passed down, but the Fae haven't been seen in decades. Obviously, her
Okay.
being Fae marked, kind of sus.
Well,
She notes that most curses lift on the 21st birthday. So she's really pleased have this curse be lifted. But she's also, I don't want this curse to be lifted because then all of that ridicule and being made fun of and bullying and abuse would have been for nothing.
interesting.
So she's like weighing both options, right?
Yeah.
The only place she was able to get a job is at a like wealthy estate with a lord, and his name is Otto. And he's objectively nice to her compared to the way everyone else treats her. He's nice. He likes her company. They have a friendship, not like a romantic relationship. It's just very friendly, almost like father-daughter type vibe.
Oh.
And she does work with other people in this estate. One of them is her friend. Her name's Ascilla. One of them she has slept with, and his name is Leofwin. I'm just going to call him Leo.
Please do.
And then there is a douchebag head servant named Raful, and he sucks, and we hate him.
Good to
Okay.
know.
But the estate is running out of money. They have let go of a lot of servants, so it's really just a core group. I feel like there's around 8 of them, but only these 3 really matter because those are who she interacts with the most.
Okay.
They're all discussing plans of celebrating midsummer, and she always stays at the estate anytime there's an event or a holiday. She doesn't like going home. So she's just planning on spending that time with Otto, and they get interrupted by Raful, which is that head servant that hates her, and he's bringing an expensive bottle of alcohol to Otto's study. He has a very important guest coming over, and she hates him.
Yeah.
And because she's very snippy with him or just doesn't really acknowledge him at all, he says really hurtful things to her all the time. And he
Oh.
also abuses her.
Oh,
He
gross.
whips her, but not in a way where you can see if she's wearing clothes. He's very good at hiding those marks. However, he's not so careful this time around. And she's pissed off at him. She grabs the bottle. Obviously, he just abused her. And then she's pissed off walking away and she forgets what room she is supposed to bring the alcohol to. She's heading towards one room and she's like, whatever, I hope this is the right room. She walks in, opens the door, sees a very tall Fey man staring at her. Okay?
Jump scare.
Very jump scare. Okay? She comments on how he doesn't look like how Fey were supposed to look. He didn't have hair like Starlight, and he didn't have very pale or translucent skin. His hair was coppery, he had stony eyes, and she had said the line of his jaw could cut as surely as a knife. At least 7 feet tall, so he's super tall, very broad shoulders and arms, and she's arms that could squeeze the life out of a human without even trying. Like, he's just so muscular. Okay. And he just emits danger. His presence is just that strong. And she apologizes, kind of stutters. She's, I'm not supposed to be here. And he replies, I wouldn't be so sure of that. Because obviously he's a smooth talker, as all Fae are.
Yeah.
And when he says that, his eyes linger around her body, going down and just looking at her as if he recognizes her in some sort of capacity, which is very interesting.
Very.
So she finally breaks the moment between them because she can't stop staring at him, obviously. She's so stunned. And when she goes to leave, she turns and he sees the marks on her neck showing through her shirt, basically.
Oh.
And he makes a sound. She raises her hand on the back of her neck and he turns to her, or she turns back to him, and his face is totally different. Just so pissed. He's gripping the edge of a seat or the desk and he's white knuckling it. And he's, who did that to you? Okay. She didn't reply. She has one hand on the doorknob and one hand up here looking at him. And all of a sudden the door opens and it's Otto walking into the room. And he goes, I see you've met Caldemir then, but we're going to call him Cal. Okay.
Love it.
So she puts 2 and 2 together and she's, oh my God, Lord Otto is going to make a deal with the Fae because he's running out of wealth and he's going to want wealth, right? As all lords or whatever want. They want more money. Lord Otto tells her to have Asilla take her home. And she's, what do you mean? I always spend midsummer with you. And he's, you're not doing that this year. That's not happening. So she's, okay. And she leaves. She goes to find Asilla and she just keeps thinking about Cal and how different he looks compared to all of the stories that have been like passed down. Catches up with Asilla and Leo. Asilla's, what the fuck is wrong with you? You look like you saw a ghost. You look sick. Tell me what happened. Asilla and her kind of pause. And there's 2 women on horses that ride up. And they have a mark on their capes or whatever, like a badge. And it's the badge of the truth bringers. Okay. And they always bring this message. The end of the kingdom is nigh. You must repent, end your bargains with the Fae and their old ways, or else be caught up in it. And they've been saying this for decades. Whatever. Nothing has ever happened. Asilla kind of steps in front of Delph because obviously she's Fae marked and these people hate the Fae. So the old woman, there's 2 women. The older one points to her and she's, you will be our undoing, you cursed kind, you Fae mark abomination. And she just continues to like berate Delph. Yeah, she's such a bitch. And she goes, they say Fae bleed blue. I wonder if I were to cut you, what color would you bleed? And she takes out her dagger and is ready to cut Delph. But Asilla's trying to not let this interaction happen. And everyone else has left, by the way. It's just them 2 with these 2 women on horses. Yeah.
Okay.
Even though they saw the commotion, they're like, peace out. Yeah, really fucked up. Anyway, so right before the old woman goes to like knife Delph, she looks behind them and sees something that spooks her and they like go away. Like immediately, they just ride off and they both turn around and nothing's there. Like it just looks like the estate. Nothing crazy happened. They keep walking. They reach the village and Delph is, fuck, I really don't want to go home. And Asilla's, you can come with me. She's, no, it's fine. I don't want to be a bother. And this is why she hates coming home. Her stepmother, Nearest, bitch. Her stepsister, her stepsister, and I had no idea how to pronounce this bitch's name, but I'm just going to call her Nora. Bitch, okay? Stepbrother, His name's Drag or some shit like that. He's a douchebag soldier, so he fucking sucks. But
It's
her
giving
dad,
Cinderella.
it's really giving Cinderella. So her dad is whatever, but her little brother, half brother, Soul, adores her. He's just like a cute little kid. She always brings back candies for him, and he just loves his sister so much. But they don't have a good welcome home. Like the stepmother's, I wish you would have told us.
Oh.
I could have made plans. Like, so annoying. Hate her so much.
Okay.
And then the stepmother starts like yelling at Soul, like, don't eat that candy. He ends up running up and climbing a tree and is like shoveling the candy in his mouth like a little kid would.
Yeah.
But Soul, being up in the tree, sees Lord Otto's carriage like coming, and he makes that announcement that he sees it. And he also sees that, or when they turn around, Delph sees that Cal is also there with his horse. And his horse is not a normal horse. It's like weird looking horse. Okay.
Okay.
It is horse adjacent, basically.
Horse adjacent.
Yeah, like it has sharp teeth and not normal horse mouth. Okay.
Gross.
Yeah, very, yeah. But yeah, as they approach, the villagers start gathering around, making a spectacle of things. And when Lord Otto finally walks up with Cal, he says, I'm so sorry, Delph. And she's, what do you mean?
Not a good sign.
Not a good sign. And they get into this conversation. He is basically, I bargained you to this guy.
Huh.
And the stepmother's, can we move this conversation into the house? Kind of making a big scene out here. I don't want people knowing my business. And Cal says, no need for that. I'd rather not waste any more time. I already have what I came for. And Delph chokes out and she's saying, that is, and he goes, you, obviously.
Ooh.
Yep. He goes on to explain that Lord Otto had made a deal that he can no longer fulfill. Okay. So he had a deal present and he no longer can fulfill that deal.
Okay.
So in exchange, he offered me you. And he's continuously leaning closer to her face because he's 7 feet tall. So he's getting down to her eye level. And he goes, that means I'm taking you to Fairy. And obviously, I'm doing everyone a favor. Your step family hates you. All these people hate you. You're Fey marked. I'm saving you and saving them. And but it's not even my bargain. This has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And he's like, why? She's like, why does it have to be me? Can't you choose someone else? And he's like, why would I do that when fate already graciously chose you for me? And he
put it that way.
He takes a finger and wraps her hair around his finger and says, I've never heard of a Fey marked before, but I'd be a fool not to recognize Fey work when I see it. So he is telling her, you are Fey adjacent, so I'm going to bring you to Fairy. So as he's obviously really close, she notices that his black eyes have flecks of gold in them. And it makes it seem like they're almost glowing. During this little, her in her own world looking at him and whatever, he's like, there is a way to get out of the bargain because I only take a willing victim. And Lord Otto says, no, if you don't do this, we lose everything. Not just the estate, but the lands, the fields, and the village. Basically, that the entire village would be enslaved to the woodland fae. Okay?
No pressure.
And Cal's, I wouldn't blame you if you let all these people get enslaved. They treated you like shit, so fuck them. Get some revenge. But she looks over to her little brother and I actually can't do this because I love him so much. I do not want him to be a slave to the Fae. So she's fine, whatever. I'll go with you. So they head towards the fairy entrance, which is over a bridge or some shit like that. She's on the horse and he's walking next to the horse and they have banter. They have banter throughout the whole book. They have so much good banter.
Oh.
It is so good. But as they're walking and he's leading the way, she thinks to herself, fuck, tomorrow is literally my birthday. This couldn't have just one day. I had one more day is what she's thinking.
So close.
Yeah, but whatever. So they have more banter, have some silence, have more banter, have some silence. So it just keeps flip-flopping. And so Delph starts a new combo with Cal about the deal, and he admits that it's not his deal. He's just the one who came to collect. And she's, oh, so you're just like a glorified delivery boy? Whatever. And as they get to the bridge, Cal starts telling her some rules she needs to know about the magic and the Fae, okay? And here are the 3 rules. Always assume danger is nearby. Nothing is as it seems. And just as Fae are rare here, humans are rare in fairy. You won't be feared. You will be hunted. And she's hunted for what? And he goes, your blood. And she's like,
Thanks.
okay, thank you so much for letting me know that. He does some magic, and they are teleported into fairy, which their realm is called Avarath. And they continue walking through this forest. So we know they're in the woodland court now. And she notices how the air is so heavy to breathe. Like it almost feels like she's drowning. And she's like really close to passing out because she's having such a hard time breathing. And when she almost falls off the horse starts talking to her. Okay. And we learn that the horse's name is Rin. And obviously, Rin speaking spooks Delph, and she tries to get off the horse. And when she leaves the horse and is midway off the horse, because obviously the horse is tall, because he is 7 feet tall, she gets off the horse. Cal ended up catching her before she actually fell and hit the ground. And she gets like super bad spins. Okay, like really bad spins. And he's like, you can't step foot in fairy because you will not be able to handle the way the realm is. So she has to get back on the horse, and they keep going through the forest until they get to the woodland court. And obviously they have more banter.
Duh.
This book has so much banter I'm leaving out. So please, if this sounds interesting so far, please read for the banter because it is amazing. And obviously the plot's really fucking good too. But anyway, they get to the woodland court and she meets the prince. And she is describing him as something straight out of a dream. He was much smaller than Cal. His slender body was powerful in its own right, more lithe and narrow, but nonetheless dangerous. Ooh. His hair, long and rosy-hued, cascaded over his shoulders in soft waves, full lips parted, and an effortlessly sultry smile to reveal perfect pearly teeth. She comments that he has like feminine grace, and there's like a certain softness to him that made it just like super hard to look away. And also he just has like startling green eyes. Okay. Ooh. And we learn that this Fae's name is Nyx. So he is the prince of the woodland court. Okay. And during this interaction between Nyx and Cal, we find out that Cal is indeed a prince too, but he's the prince of the mountain court. And you've been a prince this whole fucking time. What?
Way to leave that detail out.
He leaves so many details out, you'll notice. Especially if you read this book, he doesn't lie. He just doesn't say the full truth either. So
yeah, selective truths.
Yeah, selective truths. Exactly. Yep. There's another Fae that ends up joining their conversation, and she describes him as his skin was more than bronzed, and his hair is dark and coarse, so thick it could rival the manes beneath me, or the mares beneath me.
Oh.
His eyes were lighter than either Nyx or Cal's, a blue so bright they couldn't be more different from the pools of black embedded in my own skull. And we find out that this Fae is another prince, and his name is Armin, and he is the Prince of Sands. Okay, so we have woodland, mountain, and sands so far.
So different from the seasonal courts we see in so many fantasy books.
100%. Yeah, very different. So far, we got 3 guys. All right. Nyx is ready to just talk, meet Delph, go through the whole thing. Yeah. But obviously, she can barely breathe. I entirely forgot for a moment that she's human, but can you really blame me? You've got to admit the resemblance is uncanny, talking about Delph. So even Nyx is like, there's something interesting about the way you look. So she's, okay, what do you mean by that in her head? And Armin agrees too. Cal tells Armin to take Delph to the pools so he can catch up with Nyx, whatever, and so she can breathe. Because basically what this pool is a way for her to self-heal a little bit so she can live in the Fey realm or just be like used to breathing and also walking. Okay.
Yeah.
When she's alone with Armin, she questions him about her looks, saying she was deemed Fey marked by her village, and that's why Cal took her. And Armin doesn't confirm nor deny. But when she questions why she hasn't seen a Fey that looks like her, he says it's because they're gone. And he doesn't really provide any more info other than that, but that they left behind the pool of indecision, which is the pool they're going to. And he says it's the last great gift before the Starlight Court abandoned us. So we know she resembles the Starlight Court.
Ooh.
And that the Starlight Court is gone and they haven't been seen in decades or probably longer. And obviously she has so many questions, but once she sees the pool, she forgets everything and she's, wow, this pool's gorgeous. And she could hear like the hum of the magic, and she notices that there's like an unnatural darkness lining the edge of the pool. Not a shadow, almost like it was dyed black, but just on the edges. Armin says that it's a magic spring that once she goes in it, she'll be able to walk and breathe easier in fairies. So she's okay, great. Also, just keep in mind, because we're in her POV, she keeps thinking about how handsome and like breathtakingly gorgeous these Fey princes are. And she's, but it must be their glamour. This is just a Fey trick that they're doing on me to make me more easy to comply with their request.
Yeah.
Armin carries her into the pool and warns her not to go towards the dark water and just doesn't give her any explanation why not to do that.
Don't push this button.
She is fully clothed getting into this pool, which should be noted because when she gets in there, she basically starts drowning, okay?
Oh.
And she isn't able to bring her head up above water. She keeps just getting dragged down to the point where she can walk on the bottom of the pool. So she starts swimming to the edge so she can pull herself up. But as she gets closer to the darkness, she can hear her name being called like a whisper. And as she keeps getting closer, she notices that the pool gets really warm towards the edges as well, whereas the center of the pool is ice cold. So obviously she keeps going closer. And then she hears someone from the surface start calling her name. And then someone jumps in and pulls her to the surface and saves her, basically. And this is his description because he is someone new. He was more muscular than any of the other Fae I'd met. His skin was so dark it nearly rivaled the inky blackness that had moments before been trying to lure me into their warm shallows. But it was his eyes that were really the most striking. They were a bright and luminous gold. The pupils slitted down the center into two mirrored half moons. Gold piercings glittered his ears and brows. Long braided plaits falling down across his muscular chest as he leaned closer to my face to look at me. So obviously this guy's hot.
The fantasy authors just know how to give a description, man.
Oh, yeah. The descriptions in this book are so good.
Oh my God.
As he's leaning closer, trying to get a look at her, she does indeed vomit into his mouth all the water she had swallowed when she was drowning, okay? And the first thing out of his mouth is, I usually like to get to know someone before I let them do that to me. And we're just like, okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, we learned that his name is Tethys and he is Prince of the Sea. So definitely shows he's very comfortable with the water. Duh.
Yeah.
But Armin gets mad at her for going towards the edge. And we finally learn from Tethys that all who touch the darkness go mad. And if you would have just told me that, I probably wouldn't have done that. But she's like noting how weirdly protective and concerned they are about her almost drowning. And there was only one explanation. They needed me for something, but for what? I suppose I just have to wait and find out. So it's definitely related to what they need me for the deal.
Mm-hmm.
They need her alive for it because obviously the deal is not done.
Yeah.
Now she gets dumped off to a woodland court servant who's rude to her. And she's asking Delph how it's possible, or sorry, Delph asks her how it's possible she can understand them and the servants, because Fae language is universal to all humans. And it's also part of the glamour that still remains intact. So we're like, okay. But then we learn that this Fae isn't a Fae at all. It's actually a demon. And this demon is presenting as a Fae because Armin said it would be more pleasant. And she's
Probably.
could I actually know your name, maybe? And I'm one of the last of my kind, a kind controlled by their true names. So no, I won't be telling you that. So then she's okay, like, can you just show me your true form? It would be nice to see something real, right?
Yeah.
Not anything related to the glamour or magic. So we find out that she is a he. I already called him a he, but it's a male demon. And his look is a bit frightening, but she is straight-faced and just looking at him in the mirror. And he finished her hair and is going to walk out, and he goes, you can call me Waylon. So Waylon the demon is Armin's demon. And we like Waylon, okay?
Okay, that's good.
Tethys comes to collect her from her room. It's time for the deal to be like solidified or whatever. During this time, they have banter, and she starts questioning him. And she says, these Starlight Fae, are they responsible for whatever's going wrong with the magic? And he's, what exactly, or, oh, sorry. And then she says, what exactly is happening tonight? What has this got to do with any of the deal that brought me here? And Tethys says, oh, good. Finally, a question I can answer. I can answer the deal question. I can't answer the magic. I can't answer the Starlight Fae, but I'll answer one out of your 100, basically. And he said, they're going to make a sacrifice of you. And she's, oh my God, thank you so much for telling me I'm going to die. Love that. So he finishes dragging her to this room. It's at the end of a long, large hallway area. Opens up into a room. There are tables, and then the table at the end that's higher than all the others, that's where all the princes are. Obviously, because Nyx is the woodland prince, he has woodland related magic. The table's made out of wood. He like splits where he's sitting away. There's no more table. Okay. Makes a little pedestal or something rise from the ground, and it has a knife on it. And as they were walking up to the table, he had been eating cherries and spitting the pits into a bowl. Okay. He takes the knife and he says we're ready to fulfill the deal. He grabs her hand, slices it, and starts sucking the blood coming out of her palm.
Ooh, kinky.
And then he takes that blood, spits it into the cherry pit bowl, and then all of a sudden magic starts happening. Okay. On their journey in, they had killed some gnats, and Nyx is very fond of every creature and plant in his court, okay? So when he had found out that they had killed some gnats, he was very upset about that. But these cherry pits start turning into gnats, and they're flying, whatever, and then all of a sudden, they turn into black dust and just go in the wind, okay?
That's not weird at all.
And Cal says, it's not enough. And then Armin says, I told you it wouldn't be enough. Then Nyx declared the deal done. And Delph is like, what the fuck just happened? Tethys said I was going to die. I just got a slash on the palm. What the fuck are you talking about? Some more banter passes because she's super confused.
Yeah.
And Nyx is, we're doing midsummer celebrations. You guys can stay or leave. And basically what is about to happen is a gigantic orgy. Oh. Definitely really confused, but she's also kind of wanting to stay. Because she's into it. Especially because Nyx is like, you can stay with me, type shit, okay?
Oh.
But Cal's like, we need to take her to her room before things get rowdy. So the orgy breaks out. She was down to fuck around and find out. And so is Tethys. Tethys was also interested to fuck around and find out. But Cal, Tethys, and Armin are bringing her away to her room, and they start discussing her as if she's not even there at all. And she's, what the fuck are you talking about? This is where I have to pull from one of the chapters, because they talk a lot of important things that is super important to the story.
Okay.
So here we are, chapter 14. This is the tea. All right. So this is getting more interesting by the second. And he goes, we're only here because you asked for it. Don't make me regret this. And I had half in mind to tell him just where he could shove his regrets, but for once I managed to keep my mouth shut. She's so spicy, spunky, love her. Cal starts to begin. You're brought here to fulfill a deal, but that's not the full truth of it. And she's, what do you mean? And it's no secret to either realm that the Fae haven't been visiting as often as we used to, but there's a reason for that. And she's, the magic. I know something's wrong with it. And Armin says, at least that's one thing we don't have to explain. And Cal continues, the glamour operates on a system of what you call deals. We had hoped that completing one, something long-standing, would bring back a spark. But then when I saw you at Otto's estate, I had another idea. So she's, what do you mean? And Armin's, I knew it. I knew you planned this all along. And Cal continues, I'd hardly call it planned. I'd hoped it wouldn't have come to this, but here we are. How much do you know about the Fae realm? And she's basically nothing. Everything I thought I knew has been so wrong so far. And I'll try to keep things short, but there are some things you need to know. Okay? Long time ago, there were more than 4 courts in Avarath and more than 4 princes. We had a king. Okay? And it's obvious Tethys and Armin hate. It's obviously they all hate the king because he was a dick.
Okay.
He was wicked, whatever. But he was the conduit to all magic in the Fae realm. And then there was a war. And the war ended up having the Fae king be imprisoned, okay, by the Starlight Fae, okay? Because it nearly tore apart Avarath. So because the king was the conduit to all magic, they didn't realize that until after he had been imprisoned, okay, in this deep sleep type of vibe, okay?
Interesting.
And the Starlight Fae knew that when they put him in this box, okay?
All right.
And that court abandoned them. And slowly, after the past couple of centuries, the magic has been dwindling. And soon they will all die, slowly and painfully, unless we do something about it. And Tethys clarifies, it was the death of a Starlight Fae who sealed him, so only the death of a Starlight Fae can release him. And that is why it had to be her, because she looks like a Starlight Fae, even though she's human. She has the look, and they're like, you are our last hope, so we're going to kill you on the days where the king is trapped, and he's trapped in the mountain court, and you dying will unleash the king and bring all the magic back. And she's, no thanks, I actually don't want to die, thank you so much for that, but whatever. So they end up leaving. Armin instructs Waylon to watch the door and make sure no one comes for Delph. But Waylon was only told to watch the door, okay? So she's actually able to escape out the window, and she goes back to the pool of indecision. She just tells Waylon, listen, I just need some fresh air. I've been locked up here for a while. I just need to move around. And he's, yeah, I'm only here to watch the door, so I don't really care.
Yep.
There's always loopholes. Love Waylon.
Love a loophole. She goes,
yeah, love a loophole. Love Waylon. Love that she's going back to the pool of indecision. And this time she unlaces her gown and heads into the water. And she's just treading water. She's not under the water. And Tethys speaks up from his hiding spot because, of course, he's at the pool of indecision. He knew she was going to be there. And he says, it only works when you're underneath. And she's like, what are you doing here? And he's, interesting question for you to be asking. And then he obviously notices that she's naked and is super blunt about knowing that. And he also then gets naked and enters the pool with her and is swimming towards her and says, you're even more beautiful than I imagined. Of course. And then he says, be careful of the edges unless you're certain. And she's certain of what? And he's like, if you want to hear what they have to say, you have to go under the water. And they have a little slow burn moment. And to get away from him, she goes under the water and heads towards the shadows. And the shadows say, Delphine, we knew you'd come back. Okay. She opens her eyes underwater and she keeps going into the blackness until she starts seeing stars in the blackness. It says, "Come closer. There's something you need to know. Something we can tell you." And then they say, "There's another way out of Avarath." And she's, "Oh, hell yeah." So she reaches into the darkness and she gets pulled into it and meets a shadowy body with no real face or shape or detail. So we don't really know what this person looks like. We do know that it is a male voice talking to her, though.
Okay.
So he says to her, "Do you know why you were brought to Avarath, Delphine?" And she says, "Yeah, I have to die so the Fae King can live and magic can come back." And he said, "Yeah, that's what we're afraid of. You can't let this happen. Stay alive, Delphine. Defy the princes, and we'll make sure you don't die in Avarath." And then she gets spit out from the blackness and the shadows and resurfaces in the pool and seeks out Tethys's body heat because obviously she's freezing. And they have a slow burn moment, and she ends up kissing him.
Oh,
And they start hooking up,
love.
and they're about to bone. Okay, this is going in the book. It's obviously written really good, but I'm going really quick. And
Yeah.
he says, "Tell me this isn't your first time. I wouldn't want to hurt you." And she's, "It's not. There was another." And he says, "Good. Now I'm going to make you forget him." And we're like,
Ooh,
"Okay, thank you
I
so
see
much."
you.
Yeah. They do the thing. When they finish, it's almost sunrise, so they head back to her room before Cal can notice that they're gone. But before they leave, Tethys is are the shadows receding? And she's like, "No, they've always looked like that." So when they leave for real, she looks back and they're gone. The
Oh,
darkness gone, like it was never there. So she's, "Oh, okay, interesting. Thank you so much for that." And now
weird.
obviously Cal comes to collect her and they start their journey to the mountain court, and she is sharing Rin with Cal, which ends up turning into a good position for her because she can just lean back on him and fall asleep whenever she wants to. But yeah, they stop a couple times, they make camp, whatever, but she feels like someone's been following them. So she tells Cal, and they immediately go into protect mode and put her in between all three horses. And it just turns out it was Nyx following with someone else, a warrior. And her name is
Hmm.
Tallulah. And imagine her being very similar to Lady Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones. Okay?
Interesting. Okay.
Because immediately when Delph sees her, she is giving Cal vibes because she's so tall, so broad and muscular. And yeah, she ends up dropping to her knee and bows her head and says, "My prince," to Cal. So she's, "Oh, okay, this is like his guard or whatever, his
Yeah.
personal guard." And then Nyx is like, "Why are you guys stopping? You haven't even left my court yet." And mind you, they've been traveling all day from dawn till dusk.
Oh
Okay.
my
Even past
gosh.
dusk, and they haven't left. And sure as shit, when they look back, they see the wall of the court and they're all fucking pissed. And Nyx is, "I guess my forest still does have some magic," or whatever.
Oh gosh.
So they end up not stopping for camp this time around. Nyx ends up leading the way so they can actually get some ground. Once they actually travel a far distance, then they set up for camp. And she wakes up to the sound of birds and she's opening her eyes and she's, "Oh, is this a dream?" Because she sees Nyx being very Disney princess. He is receiving bird or gifts from the birds and he's thanking them
Hmm.
for all the gifts that they're
Oh my
bringing.
gosh.
And he ends up turning to her and sees that she's watching him, walks over to her, and they just start making out. Okay. And then she's like, "Oh, fuck, this is real. This is a real thing happening right now, not a dream." And she freaks out. And when she backs up, she ends up slicing her hand on a knife that was left out for protection.
Okay.
And Cal spits on her hand. Because I did forget to
Oh.
mention this. When Nyx had sliced her palm during the sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
because Nyx had sucked her blood from the palm, the Fae saliva healed her hand. But because
Oh.
his was like a lot, it healed really fast and really neat. Whereas Cal spitting on her hand is just a shit job, basically healing.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. And she's, "Oh, okay, thank you so much for doing that." But when they all take a look at Delph, they're worried. She has
Why?
very pale skin already. So her eyes, around her eyes, black little lines are coming out all around.
Oh,
So she
jeez.
looks like she's being poisoned from the inside out.
Oh.
But yeah, as the days dragged on, she keeps feeling more and more lethargic and just, oh, fuck, I'm not feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
Tallulah is always watching her. And she ends up dropping back to ride with Tethys. And behind
Okay.
Tethys is Nyx. She gets thrown from her mule because Nyx had brought her a mule to ride.
Mm-hmm.
And she is able to make it over the brambles that the mule had stopped at. Nyx was not as lucky. He did get really
Oh.
cut up and he's, oh my God, it must be hideous. I never wanted you to see me like this. And she's, you're already healing. You're the most beautiful person or creature I've ever laid my eyes on, human
God,
or
Fae
fae.
men are so dramatic.
And he's really, and she's, yes. And he goes, okay, great. And then
Oh my
they start trying to
God.
find their way back to the group. But they end up like mockingbirds or whatever, their version of
Okay.
mockingbirds. And yeah, they are actually super far away. And
Oh,
they end up
fun.
running into Nyx's ex, who is a dryad named Betula.
Oh.
And she's pissed at him because he basically ghosted her. And he still wears her necklace that she had given him.
Oh.
So she's, what the fuck, Onyx? We find out his name's Onyx, his full name. And yeah, she gets really upset. And Delphus, I'm not going to get involved with this
Yep.
until Betula uses her little dryad magic because she's a tree,
Mm-hmm.
and roots start to grow from the bottom and entangle Nyx's legs. And then they entangle his
Interesting.
arms to be pinned so he can't use his arms and he can't move now. And she
Hmm.
is about to rape him.
Oh my God.
She doesn't actually rape him because
But
Delph sets
still.
her on fire.
Oh, good.
Okay.
You
And
know?
she freaks out, lets go of all her roots. He drops to the floor and they run. Okay. And once they know
Hmm.
they got away, they're like, so much adrenaline's going on. She kisses him. And then they're about to
Oh.
bang, but they didn't. But you can read the reason why they didn't. But Nyx does share some information that they all know that she had slept with Tethys, by the way. No secret there because they could smell Tethys on her.
Oh, yeah, I forget that's how that works.
They don't. They end up, Nyx ends up laying his head on her lap. And he says, if it wasn't for Cal, none of us would be doing this. We weren't expecting this to be so hard. He's the one who wants to keep, or who keeps insisting on going through with this. He's the only one. If it were up to the rest of us, now that we've gotten to know you, we'd find another way. Mind you, gotten to know her. They've known her for a couple days.
Oh God.
Okay? They don't know her, but they're in love with
No.
her already, which that's one of the things where I get why people gave this like a low rating because of
Yeah.
that. I get it. But yeah, she doesn't believe what he's saying and he falls asleep. Once she knows that he's in a deep sleep, she looks at this puddle and is, let me give it a whirl. She's looking
Okay.
at this puddle and she's, hello, is anyone there? If you're not there, fuck you guys. You guys are the evil ones, basically. She's just yelling at this puddle. And then finally the puddle says back, okay, what's going on? And she is, listen, I need to know how long I need to hold out for because I'm on my way to be sacrificed. So how long do I have to wait? And they tell her when the new moon sets, we will come for
Mm-hmm.
you. So that's basically 2 weeks. It's
Okay.
13, 12 days. Okay.
All right.
She's okay. I can do that maybe, potentially. Yeah. The next morning they're obviously heading in the right direction because Nyx was able to use some magic. But because he used some magic, a huge chunk of the forest decayed. Plants,
Oh.
animals, and that's what they walk into. And the group ends up walking into them as well. And Nyx is devastated, like an absolute
Yeah.
shell of what he was just a couple mornings ago.
Poor guy.
So he just becomes mute and is sad and whatever. The rest of them, obviously, they keep going. They can see the mountains in the distance. So they're
Mm-hmm.
heading towards this valley. And this valley is very scary. There's like myths to it. And
Mm-hmm.
Armin's not too keen on that. Okay. But
Okay.
they're having this conversation when they stop to rest right before they get to the valley, and Cal and Delphine are like bickering right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you should be thanking me for saving you. I saved you from your village. They were all fucking rude to you and treated you like shit. Like, you should say thank you. And she's, what? No. And then he says to her, I've done more for you than I've killed for you. And that's when we find out that he ended up killing Raffle for whipping her and causing her those marks on her back. And he said he'd do it again. So then now we're like, what the fuck do you mean? You want her to die to bring back the king, but then you're killing her abuser? What type of mindfuck game are you doing, Caldemir? Okay?
Pick a side.
Pick a fucking side. And she's like, I don't understand you. You'll sacrifice me in some ill-fated attempt to get your magic back, but you'll kill a man who once took a switch to me a little too hard. And he's, that's different. And she's, it's literally not, but okay.
Literally not.
So then they're going for the valley, okay? And Armin ended up checking out the area. And it is important to note that there were 2 other travelers on this trail that ended up joining their group, because there are monsters that will want to kill them in this valley area. So they're taking this track together.
All right.
The 2 guys that joined them have torches. So they're doing this valley trek at night. Armin never came back. So they're like, fuck it. We'll just meet him wherever he is. Then all hell is about to break loose.
Oh, God.
But Cal and Delph have to have one more conversation. And he was like, you really think I like this? You think this is what I want? And she's like, yeah, I do. And he's, then why would I try to kiss you? You remembered that, don't you? From the other night, talking about like when they got really close, bickering, like just last night about how he killed for her, whatever.
Yeah.
And whatever, they keep bantering. Then all hell breaks loose. The torches go out. The monsters that were on the valley walls start descending, and Delph gets kidnapped. Okay.
Oh,
he gets kidnapped, brought to a cave, and there's a secret third guy that had captured Armin and has Armin tied up. So the dagger that Delph had cut her hand on was actually her dagger. So it's on her person. It was gifted to her by Tallulah. And she unsheaves the dagger, and Armin is able to grab the dagger while the other 3 guys are like bickering or whatever. And he's able to cut himself free. During this bickering is when she noticed that these men had the patch of the truth bringers. And she's, whoa, full circle, crazy. They want to kill her so she can't die and release the king, because they don't want the king to. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, Armin got free, starts killing these guys, leaves one of the guys alive, and pins him to the wall. Okay. Right. During this whole fighting scene, somehow she got stabbed in her thigh by like falling back on another dagger. I don't know if it was her dagger or not, but she got stabbed on her inner thigh, high up, really close to that important artery or vein or whatever that's in your thigh. She's bleeding out. Okay.
Oh, God.
Armin sees this. He sees that she's losing a fuck ton of blood, and I can heal this. And we all know how this can be healed. Okay. She still has the dagger lodged in her, and she's, no, it's too intimate. And he's, so you'd rather die than let me between your legs? And she's like, it's not that. It'll take too long, and it's so much blood. And he says, please, Delph, I'm not afraid of a little blood, and it's a good thing I have stamina.
What a line.
Yeah. So he goes for it, and she's getting horny, obviously, as he's licking her wound closed and pulling out the dagger slowly and going at that antagonizing slow pace. And she pulls him up, or he stops because he's done, pours water to get all the blood off of his face, and then she pulls him in, and she's, I don't want you to stop. I want you to have me, all of me. And he's, there's nothing in this world or the next that I want more, but I can't give you what you want, not tonight. And she's like, why not? 2 reasons. They have a cuck in the room hanging on the wall. He's still alive. He just doesn't have a tongue anymore because he cut the tongue out. But
not what you want.
He can't also fuck her because of his conscience.
Oh.
Lovemaking is like a sacred bond in his kingdom or in his
Oh.
court. And it wouldn't be right to bed you knowing the future I condemned you to. So I know we're going to kill you, so I'm not going to fuck you because that's not right. And she's,
Well,
okay, well,
yeah.
thank you very much. Waylon shows up and takes them both back to this room. There's a bed. She falls into a coma. Okay.
Fun.
And during her coma, she dreamt of Armin. And when she woke up, she saw Waylon, and Waylon said Armin wants to be left alone. And he just had to come to terms with a couple things. We don't really know how long she's been in this coma, but we do find out Waylon ended up taking them to the mountain court. So they're in the mountain court now.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
One of the things that Armin had to come to terms with is Delphine may have turned into a fae during this whole thing.
Casually.
So, yep, turns out she did in fact have fae blood in her, and it took a near-death experience for her to transition.
Oh.
And Waylon notified Cal, Nyx, and Tethys that she's awake. So they all barge in on her. And that's when Cal assigns Tallulah to watch her. And Tethys is, we need to take some time. She just got out of a coma. We should not be sacrificing her. She needs to get her strength, whatever. Now, especially that she's Fae now, she should be at full capacity. And Tallulah's agreeing. Tallulah's, yeah, she needs to like give her some time. We're in Delph's room. She still has the dagger. Tallulah asks her if she still does. And Tallulah says, good. There's more to this life than magic. And we're like, interesting.
What's that mean, Tallulah?
What does that mean, bitch? So then Tethys makes his entrance and takes her to the gardens because he just wants to have a moment alone with her. He's, I miss the feeling of you in my arms. And you say like it's been an eternity since that night. And he goes, an eternity sounds right. Though if we're being exact, it's been 13 days.
Okay.
We are close to the new moon. Okay.
Oh, God.
Which is really exciting for her. She's excited to know that she's really close. He admits to being afraid of losing her back in the canyon or valley or whatever, and how scared he was to never be able to see her again or kiss her or touch her. And she's, why are you saying that to me when you know I'm literally going to die soon?
Yeah, come on, guys.
And so he says, you think I wanted this? I didn't ask for this. For you, it's not my fault that you consume my every thought. Night or day, waking or sleeping, you're there. You're always there.
Okay.
And then she's like, what the fuck are you saying to me? And he goes, I'm saying that I think I'm falling in love with you, Delphine. And she's like, how, dude? You're about to kill me. And they start arguing. And she blurts out that her court is coming to save her. Okay.
Oh, no.
That's not happening. It's a ruse. They're lying to you. They're truly gone. They're never coming back. And she feels a little bit of doubt, but she's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to believe. Okay.
Yep. Best thing
Tallulah finds them because he had only brought her like not that far away. So she was like, really? Brings her back to her room to be changed. And as they're prepping, because they're like prepping for a feast or whatever. Yeah. As they're prepping for the feast, she's like contemplating everything, like how she was so stupid to let Nyx and Tethys and Armin like in her heart, and obviously they would never help her because they are truly aligned with Cal.
Yeah.
And when she's all done getting ready, Cal comes to collect her for the feast, and she notes that when he finally looks at her in her fae form, he looks like he wants to fuck her, basically.
Oh.
Calls him out on it. Banter ensues. They get to the room where the feast is and everyone else is waiting. Okay. She sits at the table with Cal, refuses to eat because humans can't eat fae food. That's a lie. She's able to eat it. She's able to drink, and she gets a little bit drunk off the fae wine. Okay. We know fae wine and what it does.
Yep.
But as time passes, she notices that Cal isn't celebrating or drinking. And she says, I thought you were the one who wanted magic back more than the rest. The most excited. And he goes, excited wouldn't be the word I'd use for it. But then some commotion happens because when Armin had killed those two fae men, that broke a law. You're not allowed to kill other fae. That was made a law after the war or something. It was to prevent more war.
Yeah.
after that commotion happens, Cal says, the sacrifice is happening tonight. I don't give a fuck. Okay.
Okay.
He turns to Delphine and says, I'm not your friend. I'm your enemy. I think it's time the both of us remembered that. So they start heading down to the mountain, down to the base of the mountain where the king's tomb is. Okay.
Okay, then.
When they get down there, she notices how it's just like a mass grave. There's so many glass tombs everywhere. And at the top of the dais, that's where the king is.
Okay.
And you told me when you kidnapped me from my home that I was saving my village from enslavement. You lied to me because that's what's about to happen. When she dies, the king comes back to life and they take over the human kingdom where she's from. Like just that one that's close to the Fey realm entrance.
Damn.
And Armin's like, did you really do that? And Cal's like, when did we all forget who we were? We Fey have always used humans. And Tethys that was usually the High King's doing, as I recall. The Sea Court never had much use for humans. Armin chimes in, the Sand Court either. And Nick says, I always thought humans were pretty like dolls. I was always so excited when a Fae brought one to my court. It was always so disappointing when they died. And then Cal says, all humans die. Delph will die whether or not we're the ones to spill her blood. She's going to die probably sooner rather than later. We've all been so determined for her to be Fae. We've forgotten that in the end, she's still only human. Okay?
Ow.
She has no idea if the moon has set yet. Okay? And she needs that moon to set. And she ends up she thinks to herself, if I have to die, then it will be by my own hand. She skirts out of Cal's grasp, runs down the dais. In that run, she took out her dagger and is pointing it at her heart, okay?
Oh.
And she said, I won't let you do this. I came to Avarath expecting to die to keep those I loved from being enslaved. So that's just what I'm going to do. And there's nothing you can do to stop me. Crazy. She starts pushing the dagger in. Tallulah steps in front of her and says, I'm sorry, my liege. I vowed to protect you all your life. Now I protect you from yourself. I can't let you do this. She continues to push the blade into her chest. And right when she pricked her skin and is about to touch bone, there's an earth-shattering rumble. And all of a sudden, it's like the heavens have split open. And there's so much bright light. And Fae emerge from the bright, blinding light that look like her. It's the Starlight Fae that had come to save her as promised.
Oh, they came back.
But that's where this book ends.
Oh, that's it? What?
This is the cliffhanger of all fucking cliffhangers because holy shit.
So it was like...
They haven't even saved her yet. They just split open the cave and made like a portal or some shit and are about to enter the scene. And then the book ends. Yep, so it's like, does she get saved? Does she not get saved? Is there a fight about to break out? What the fuck's going on type shit? Yeah.
But we don't get to know. That's
Gotta
cool.
read book two.
Oh my goodness. I like that one.
It's good.
I feel like sometimes...
The story's so unique.
I get why people didn't like it because it was like, bro, chill. You knew her for a week. Like, calm
100%.
down.
100%.
But I do get that. However, I do think this one was a little more unique than like the ones I've heard in the past or like compared to the ones I have read. I think it is definitely more unique, which is nice.
And I love the writing. I left so much out. Like the banter is so good. And
love some banter.
It's short. Like it really is such a short read. Like the way that you read, Stacia, like you read so fast. Yeah. You could finish the whole series. I bet you could read a book a day. I bet you could read 2 books a day. Like 100%. It is such a quick read. It really sucks you in and you're just like wanting to know more. And because it's such an easy book to read, like you just fly through it. Apart from the names being absolutely terrible to pronounce.
Oh, yeah, that's every fantasy book, though.
But yeah, that's every fantasy book. But yeah, I absolutely
But this might be a good one for somebody who like wants to get into fantasy, but just wants to dip their toe in instead of reading a whole Sarah J. Maas series.
Yeah, especially because the first book of ACOTAR is so difficult to get into.
Oh my God,
really?
It's terrible.
Yeah, like when I was rereading it with Tyler, the whole first half he was like, when is it going to get good? And I'm like, trust me, I know. And that book really doesn't get good until she goes back to go under the mountain and all
Yeah.
that happens. That's when the book gets good because it's exciting and there's shit happen. There's a couple parts where fun things are happening, but like this book, the pacing of it is so quick because they're on such a time crunch to save the magic that a lot more is able to be told and the story is able to progress without having to lose any of the fun character development or character personalities, or like the world building doesn't get missed. Like
That's
you
good though.
still get all those things, but under 300 pages. So
definitely
it's really good.
Good for a beginner reader. But no, that was
it
really
is
good.
spicy, obviously.
Duh.
No. But it's really not as spicy as like some other books I've read.
Oh my God.
So there was like there was one full scene of sex. And then 2 times where they just made out or something, like there was something happening and almost but didn't. So it's, and I don't even think, in the second book, I don't really think there's any spice at all. There might be one scene, but in, for example, Beast of the Briar, those scenes are like pages long. Yeah. This one's not.
I was talking earlier about my coworker who is reading Quicksilver, and something she said really stuck out to me. She was like, she's one of the reasons I don't like this book is it's because it's like the author wrote a bunch of smut and then try to smush a plot in there. And I was like, ooh, interesting, because I also hate it when it's just smut and no plot. So I like that she could put an actual plot in this book along with some good smut as well.
100%. Yeah. And that's how I feel about Beast of the Briar too. Like the plot of that book series is so good. The plot of this book is so good. Obviously, you get your typical tropes, but I haven't read a fantasy book that is this structured in a way of in ACOTAR. It's Beauty and the Beast. In Beast of the Briar, it's also Beauty and the Beast, but rather than always being beasts, they're men always beast at night. Yes. And this is you're being taken for a fae deal, but by the way, you're also a descendant of a fae kind that is no longer here anymore, and you're going to die. But then all of a sudden, they're splitting open the heavens and like about to either save her or like start another war, basically. Yeah. So
again, what a cliffhanger.
Yeah, really, really good.
Speaking of cliffhangers, our next episode is going to be Jordan and I talking about the same book.
Finally.
I know, finally. I always say I'm not a romantasy person, and I'm really not. However, there is one series out there that has a chokehold on me. I love more than anything in this world, and that is Fourth Wing. It is, I read it for the plot and the lore. Jordan hasn't read it at all. So she's on book 1 right now, and next week we are going to be talking about just book 1.
Yep.
So for all you people out there like me who have read Onyx Storm, who have the red string on the corkboard going and everything, we're not getting to that yet. We will.
No, not
Believe
yet.
me.
But I'm on chapter 12 and I have thoughts, and just can't wait to yap about that next week. I'm so excited. We'll be together in person, which I'm also excited.
Yes, because for those who don't know, Jordan and I don't live near each other anymore. I decided to move, and she has not moved here yet. Eventually,
it is, but not yet. In due time. In due time.
But it'll be great because we'll be together, and then we'll be able to talk about Fourth Wing, which I'm just so excited for.
Yeah.
Like I said, y'all, I'm not a romantasy person. I would never act like this towards ACOTAR or really any book. But when Onyx Storm came out, you bet your bottom dollar, I was at Target at 7 a.m. I didn't want a Target copy. I just wanted a copy. And I read the whole book in one day.
Yeah. Took the day off of work to read the whole
thing, I took PTO. And I would never do that for any other book. However, Rebecca Yarros has an absolute chokehold on me, and I hate her for it. I'm really excited.
Like, from what I've read so far, if you liked the Hunger Games or like Divergent, like you would like Fourth Wing, because that is, you are getting those vibes. Not really so much like the faction of Hunger Games, but just like the vibe as a whole is very
And she just has wonderful characters, and her way to weave in a plot. And something I told Jordan that I know very well about Rebecca Yarros is a big Taylor Swift stan, and like Taylor Swift, she likes to put Easter eggs in her books. And so she will put so many little tips and hints in her previous books. There are things in the first book that come up again in the third book. You just have to pay attention to those things.
I like that.
Yeah, it all connects, which is just bonkers crazy to me. When she started writing this, she had all the books already planned. She said, this is a 5-book series. I know it happens basically in every single book. So she was able to take that and run with it. And it really shows. It's just really good writing.
Yeah.
I will warn you, Jordan, there is one particular thing in the next book people do get annoyed about, but I don't see it that big of a problem.
Okay.
It'll be really interesting when it's so stupid, but people get so annoyed about it. I'm like, shut up. You're fine.
Well, good to know.
I know. It's going to be really interesting, but for those of you who do follow Fourth Wing, Jordan is about to make it to Threshing.
Yeah.
We will see her thoughts on that next week.
So excited.
You and me both, girl. All right. Until then, see you guys.
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram, Spotify, subscribe on YouTube.
Please.
Yeah.
Feel
free to DM us with book recs too. Comment book recs. Yes. We are open to seeing what you guys are reading and want us to talk about and yap about.
Please do. But until then, bye-bye.
Bye.